The Rape of the Mind, Part 4. In Search of Defenses. The moment we become aware that special political phenomena are a threat to our existence, corresponding inner defenses develop automatically. We feel reassured as we discover ways to face the problems. The closing chapters of this book deal first with some of the official attitudes and the code created to encounter brainwashing, a danger which has appeared rather recently in history. The final chapter searches more elaborately for the inspiring values which can characterize freedom and democracy. The question of how best to build up military and civilian morale becomes more compelling because of the tremendous mental pressure modern civilization imposes on man. The Rape of the Mind, Chapter 15. Training Against Mental Torture, the U.S. Code for Resisting Brainwashing. By executive order of the President Eisenhower on August 17, 1955, a new code of chivalry was made up governing conduct of American fighting men in combat and captivity. 6 precepts of conduct for combats were enacted. I am an American fighting man. I serve in the forces which guard my country and our way of life. I am prepared to give my life in their defense. I will never surrender of my own free will. If in command, I will never surrender my men while they still have the means to resist. If I am captured, I will continue to resist by all means available. I will make every effort to escape and aid others to escape. I will accept neither parole nor special favors from the enemy. If I become prisoner of war, I will keep faith with my fellow prisoners. I will give no information or take part in any action which might be harmful to any comrade. If I am a senior, I will take command. If not, I will obey the lawful order of those appointed over me, and I will back them in every way. When questioned, should I become a prisoner of war, I am bound to give only name, rank, service number, and date of birth. I will evade answering further questions to the utmost of my ability. I will make no oral or written statement disloyal to my country and its allies, or harmful to their causes. I will never forget that I am an American fighting man, responsible for my actions and dedicated to the principles which made my country free. I will trust in my God and in the United States of America. Full report in the New York Times, August 18, 1955. In the edition report about the recommendation by the Secretary of Defense, it is acknowledged that modern warfare has brought the challenge to the doorstep of every citizen, and that the final front of the Cold War line is in every citizen's mind. At the same time, a clearly defined code is given telling US prisoners of war how to behave after capture. Although there was lack of such code previously, the report states that American troops have demonstrated through all wars that they do not surrender easily. They have never surrendered in large bodies, and they have in general performed admirably in their country's cause as a prisoner of war. After describing physical attacks on prisoners, death marches, hunger, squalor, cold, torture, disease, and total degradation, the report gives extended attention to all the forms of mental coercion intended to extract forced confession or military information from the soldiers and to infect them with totalitarian thinking. First, the enemy aimed at breakdown of the leaders, at confusion of the officers, who so easily influenced their soldiers. Then gradually everybody had to undergo the ordeal of indoctrination. The enemy propaganda barrage started full speed. This suggestive attack reached minds not used to highly specialized discussion, minds not informed and rather confused about communism and its tactics. Inner discrepancies in the reasoning of the man could easily be attacked and reduce him to docile submission. Inner discrepancies in the reasoning of man could easily be attacked and reduce him to docile submission. The report pleads that more extended, skillful training of the soldier and the citizen in our basic beliefs and responsibility, a mental mobilization for the future crash of ideas and wills. There was a considerable conflict of opinion in the advisory committee to the Secretary of Defense that drafted the code between the hard Spartan view and the more lenient let them talk view. The first group maintained that every soldier has to resist to the end. The latter believed that in the end everybody could be brought into submission. Nevertheless, all soldiers have to be trained especially to resist and not to be made disloyal to their country, their services, and their comrades. That was the principal reason why this final code of high standard was made up, Even though it is recognized that coercion is possible beyond the ability to resist, yet the psychologist here adds the additional question: who will judge what is beyond the ability to resist? The report ends by underlining the fact that the total war for the minds of men is continually going on. The home front is just an extension of the fighting front. An important point made by the code is that it asks the attention to be given to far more extensive mental battlefront. By making it known that the coercive methods of the communists are well understood by us, the impact and meaning of their Cold War strategy are partly taken away. Finally, nobody in the outside world believes them, even though their totalitarian methods may be of use to them for internal propaganda in their own countries. However, we cannot fight indoctrination with mere counter-indoctrination. Letting soldiers sing a declaration that they will never yield by brainwashing has the advantage of at least informing them of what to expect. Yet this knowledge does not protect them against the subtle conditioning by an inquisitor who knows how to circumvent mental obstacles. Time and subtle suggestive penetration can break men's resistance. Psychologically, a loyalty oath, compulsion, and a signed declaration do not mean anything in themselves. Only a profound education in mental freedom and democratic awareness can help us counter toxic. The authorities who ask for signed declaration of loyalty are not enough aware of how much propaganda and persuasive brainwashing and other forms of mental seduction are going on right here in our own society. They are substituting the social and the national responsibility for an individual one. It is the moral and political atmosphere behind the man in the hinterland that supplies his mental stamina. The nation is responsible for the mental backbone it trains and transfers to its soldiers in a Cold War. Several prisoners of war felt misled by their own government. They had been badly informed about their enemy, in two simple terms of black and white. By showing this good side, the captor could easily arouse suspicion about the honesty of the prisoner readers. From a psychiatric standpoint, it needs to be said again that everybody can be brought to breaking point regardless of how well informed and counter-indoctrinated he may be. When the enemy wants to persist in his demoralizing methods, he has the means. Alas, the report did not emphasize enough the difficult dialectic dilemma into which many a simple soldier is thrown. For years he has been trained in a society or military group where obedience to the law and conformity to community habits were imprinted on him. Suddenly, he has to select and test his own individuality and critical defenses. A Cold War asks for a high level of political awareness. This brings the problem back again to the problem of individual mental vulnerability or person and to the general problem of morale. Mental courage cannot be cultivated by physical training only. It requires training in mental stamina, in understanding of basic beliefs, and even in nonconformist thinking. We have to believe deeply in the cause of which we are fighting in order to resist the standpoint of the enemy. It is the strength of conviction that gives moral power. Indoctrination against indoctrination. An educational concept exists to the effect that conditioning to physical torture will help soldiers to be more immune to brainwashing. In one of the Air Force bases, airmen had to go through a school of torture, euphemistically called the School of Survival, and in which some of the barbarous and cruel communist methods of handling prisoners were initiated in order to harden the men against future brutality. The trainees could start the grownish exercise rather well. However, such a training can condition men to take over, outwittingly, the methods of totalitarianism. It may give a semi-official green light to enemy tactics by implying that we can do the same. Moreover, such methods may stimulate hidden sadistic tendencies in both trainer and trainee. Under the disguise of the earnest training need, American youth may be educated in the same sadistic view as their enemies. The important psychological implication of every form of harsh compulsive training and indoctrination is that it fits into the totalitarian pattern. Moreover, the totalitarian inquisitor do not need to use physical torture in order to uncover the secrets of man's mind, although they may use these methods to their private pleasure. On the contrary, the enemy counted just as much on friendly gestures and special privileges to seduce the hungry, weakened prisoners of war into confession. What the inquisitors especially require in order to seduce is that the enemy have a weak personality, and that he dumbbell with the soldiers' need to conform, that he be ridden with anxiety and lacking in patience. The brainwashing inquisitor doesn't need torture. Physical torture will often strengthen resistance against the inquisitor, while isolation alone can accomplish these objectives. The school that teaches only torture and elevation techniques can even arouse latent anxieties and thus, paradoxically, make it easier for the soldier, weakened by his fantastic anticipations, to surrender to brainwashing. The hero at school can become a weakling as soon as he is faced with a real challenge. It is not so important what the trainee accomplished during his physical training, but what he stands for mentally and spiritually. Does he have a mental backbone? Only this will stand him in good stead during the challenge of prisonership. The psychiatric report about brainwashing and menticide. In every report on brainwashing of prisoners of war, several factors that may lead to accusation of collaboration with the enemy have to be taken into account to determine the psychological responsibility of the accused. Did he surrender mentally under the kind of hypnosis? Can he be responsible at all? Was there a conscious and voluntary collaboration which turned the man into a traitor? Was there a cowardice or only spiritual weakness? Because these questions are so new in our history and often so subtle in relation to the circumstances, it is well to enumerate the fields of interest to be analyzed. The Inquisition. The psychologist has to study the incriminating facts. We often can see, for instance, in the phrasing of the signed confession, evidence that the signature was enforced. Some cliché phrases and enemy can be looked at as gradually waggled out of the head of the victim. For one of the quotes, I was able to make an analysis of a written confession that was composed of such as heterogeneous elements that the process of mental whistling and the gradual giving in of the prisoner could easily be discerned in the papers. Rumor and mass psychology. Not all the accusations against the prisoner of war made by fellow prisoners, even when the majority constantly repeat them, may be taken to face value. Under the impact of terror and fear, rumors about special persons are easily communicated. There are personalities who, on the basis of their special character structure, easily become the focal point of rumors. The withdrawn intellectual, for instance, is often accused of consorting with the enemy. When he speaks the enemy's language and can communicate with them, accusation against him can become like a huge mass hallucination. The investigators has to make a surgery of group relations in the prisoner of war camp. The brainwashing enemy tries first to attack the leaders in order to attack the morale of the remainder of the prisoners of war. Then he tries to select especially vulnerable personalities for this strategy of mental pressure and ideological conversion. The personality structure of the accused, certain persons, on the basis of their weak ego and their underlying neurotic anxieties, are predestined to give in earlier to mental pressures. To obtain a fair estimate of the individual, intelligence test and the research test need to be given. The family background and the religious and ideological foundation of the person have to be studied. Was the brainwasher well trained to stand the treatment? What kind of information had been given to the prisoner of war during his training? Did he know enough about the ideological war and the word barrage he might be exposed to? Was he only prepared for discipline and submission, or also for freedom and non-conforming discussion? Was he only physically trained or also mentally? The facts of torture. How long did it take before the prisoner gave in? Did he take drugs? How much isolation? How many hours of interrogation? Were there symptoms of pain and physical illness? Can these facts be verified? This is only a short survey of the viewpoints to be taken into account. They serve to show that in the phenomena of systematic brainwashing and thought control, something is about to befall the code that is judicially new. The traditional attitudes towards personal competence, responsibility, and accountability cannot be applied. The state, the totalitarian system of the enemy, has, in the case of successful brainwashing, taken over, even taken possession of, all psychological responsibilities of the obedient acts of persons. Our criminal court and military court will have to find new rules of judging those who fell into the hands of such a criminalizing system. End of chapter 15.